4614, and I reserve the balance of my time.
Gentleman reserves the balance of his time. The gentleman from Florida.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I yield myself such time as I may consume.
Gentleman is recognized.
Mr. Speaker, I rise in support of H.R. 4614, which I'm proud to be a co-sponsor. The Katie Sepich Enhanced DNA Collection Act authorizes incentive grants to states that implement programs to collect DNA samples from felony arrestees. DNA arrestee programs are an important law enforcement tool to identify the perpetrators of open and unsolved cases. DNA arrestee programs can also prevent crime by linking suspects to crimes and locking them up before they have a chance to strike again. Katie Sepich's case clearly demonstrates the value of collecting DNA from felony arrestees. Just 3 months after brutally raping and murdering Katie in 2003, Gabriel Avila committed an aggravated burglary for which he was convicted in 2004, absconded from the sentencing, and was apprehended again in 2005. His DNA was finally taken and matched to Katie's case, a match that could have been obtained just 3 months after Katie's murder, saving valuable law enforcement resources and providing some closure to Katie's family and friends. New Mexico's DNA arrestee law was passed in 2006. 21 other states now have similar laws, including my home state of Florida. Florida's DNA arrestee program solved a 25-year-old murder when the suspect was arrested last May and his DNA collected on felony drug charges. In New York, DNA collected following a drunk driving arrest linked the suspect to 3 rape homicides dating back over 20 years. By collecting DNA samples from arrestees and uploading them into a national DNA database, or CODIS, states can empower police and prosecutors not only to solve cold cases, but hopefully apprehend violent criminals before more innocent people are victimized and precious lives are lost. H.R. 4614 provides incentive grants to states that implement and use DNA arrestee programs. The amended version of this bill before us today makes several important improvements to the bill. First, it removes the provision that would have penalized states that do not have arrestee programs percent of their federal grant money. Second, it creates a 2-tiered system for incentive grant awards based upon whether the state has a minimum or enhanced arrestee program, which I hope will provide greater flexibility to states receiving those grants. Third, the amended bill places a cap on the authorization level, limiting it to 10% of the amount of the appropriated for the Burn-JAG grant program. I support these improvements to the bill. However, I also recognize there are other areas where the bill could also be improved. A significant hurdle to the states implementing DNA arrestee programs is the cost. In Georgia, for instance, where legislation was introduced earlier this year to require DNA collection from arrestees, it would cost as much as $7 million a year to operate the program. Unfortunately, Georgia will not be eligible for an incentive grant under H.R. 4614 until it fully implements a DNA arrestee process. A possible solution would be to allow states such as Georgia to use grant funding to implement their DNA arrestee law where the costs are arguably their highest. In addition, H.R. 4614 awards incentive grants to states with DNA arrestee programs not just once, but year after year after year. Perhaps the emphasis should be on those states that have not yet enacted or implemented a DNA arrestee program. Because this grant increase is compulsory under this bill, the Justice Department will be required to administer the additional bonus to states even if Congress does not appropriate additional funds for the program. There is concern that this may ultimately result in depleting Burn-JAG funds from certain states, thus creating a penalty to states without the DNA arrestee law. I hope to work with all concerned parties and resolve the lingering issues as this legislation moves forward, but I urge my colleagues to support this legislation, and I reserve the balance of my time.
Gentleman from Georgia.
Mr. Speaker.